I'm looking at a very old headstone in the Hillcrest Cemetery in Wakatani. The headstone says, "Treasured memories of Trevor Bishop, died 20th of May 1957, aged 11 years, always remembered by his family." But see, there's more to it than just the words on this headstone. My name is Ronald Edward Bishop, and I shot my little 11-year-old brother when I was 16 years of age. I was careless with a rifle and accidentally shot him through the head. And I've come back to his grave. It's only the second time I've been here, and I've come back to say sorry, mate. Sorry, Trev, for what I did to you. I really wish I could bring it all back, but I can't. But one day I'll be with you in heaven, my mate. So I'll see you later, okay? God bless you. Hi folks, my name's Ron Bishop, and I'm here today to tell you about me. For many years I've always wanted to write my life story, but I've never really got round to it. And now at 71 years of age, I believe it's time to write my story. I've got cancer and I don't know how long I have to live, but the best thing I can leave my descendants is my story. So I'm going to start my story from the beginning to the end, whenever that may be. I was born in a place called Hamilton in New Zealand, and I was christened Ronald Edward Bishop. My parents lived on a farm at Tiamutu, and the farm was covered in ragwort, which is a yellow flower that poisonous. It's poisonous to cows, and it got out of control, and my parents had to sell the farm because they couldn't make do. I was always annoyed that my parents sold the farm because I wanted to be a farmer. But my father was a gambler. He was a compulsive horse gambler. And he gambled away the family farm, and I was always disappointed in him doing that. But however, my mother was different. She was very conscientious, and she had one thing in mind with us children, there was 8 of us, was a good education. She made sure we had a good education. I went to several schools because after they sold the farm, I lived in, we shifted to the King Country and then the Bay of Plenty. I want to tell you now about some of my memories of those years. One of my memories that stick in my mind is my sister. I had a younger sister. And we both were getting ready to go to school one morning, and my sister fell over, and she was lying in the lounge kicking, and there was froth coming out of her mouth. And I wondered what the hell was happening to my sister. Well, it turned out she had developed epilepsy. Epilepsy is a mental illness that affects the brain, and they lose control of their body. My next bad memory growing up was when I was 16 years of age. We'd shifted to a new farm, government block, and I was introduced for the first time to rifles. I'd never had anything to do with rifles up until that point. But my friend who worked on the farm taught me how to use rifles. And we used to go pig hunting. And we'd catch a pig and with the dogs and grab hold of the leg of the pig and turn it over and stick it with a knife, and then watched it as it bled to death. We used to shoot little pigs. We used to shoot deer. And one morning my friend and I were going up on the hill deer stalking. And we were walking along the fence line, and here came a mother deer and a little fawn at its foot. And they ran on up the hill. And I had a .303 rifle, and I just picked it up and let off a shot. And we saw something disappear on the hill. We got to the top of the hill, and my bullet out of my rifle had gone through the top of the deer's head and killed it instantly. And then I heard some bleating in the thistles. And I looked across amongst the thistles, and here was a little deer, a little fawn, come back looking for its mother, because it got lost. The mother wasn't there all of a sudden, and I shot the mother. And my friend wanted to shoot the little deer, and I said, no, don't shoot it. And it ran off into the bush, crying. And I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't sleep for several nights, wondering what happened to that little deer. But there is a thing in the world called karma. Whatever you give out in life will come back to you. Give out bad things will come back. Give out good things will come back. Well, it came back to me in an unexpected way. A friend of mine, who I used to board with, said, can I come out on the farm this weekend? I said, yes, as long as you bring a rifle. Can you get a rifle? He said, yes, I can borrow one from the neighbour, a .22 rifle. So he borrowed this rifle, and they came out to stay for the weekend. And there was 4 or 5 of us boys. We were doing target practice. We had tins on the fence, on the gate, and we were shooting at these tins with this .22 rifle. My mother called us in for lunch. We all went in for lunch, and I was very keen to get back out on the target practicing, because I was a good shot. A very good shot, and I was keen to get out there. So I got out there, and just outside our back door was a tank stand, and my other brothers came out behind me, but I went behind the tank stand and leant my elbow on the tank stand to get a good shot at the tin on the gate, and I pulled the trigger. And as I pulled the trigger, there was a flop in front of me. It was my little brother. I had shot him through the head with a .22 rifle. And he was lying there, bleeding. We only had an old car, an old Ford V8. We were a long way from the hospital. We put him in the car and we took him into the hospital. And as I was sitting there waiting, I was saying to myself, and I was praying to God, don't let him live, because he'll be a vegetable. And I don't want to have to cart him around knowing that I did this. Well, he died on the operating table. My parents didn't know what to do with me. They sent me away to stay with my cousins for a time. So that is karma. That is the first introduction I had to karma. I had killed that little calf's mother. And God said, whatever you give out, you get back. And he did it in a cruel way. But I learned a big lesson.
This is the headstone of my sister, Heather Joyce Bishop. Died 20th of July 1977, aged 35. Also in the grave is her father, Arthur Ernest, loved husband of Joyce, died on the 26th of July 1982 at age 70.
Right, I want to go back now and talk a bit more about my sister Heather. I said that she had epilepsy. She died when she was about 35 of the illness. But I also want to talk about karma. You see, I was mean to my sister. When we grew up at the same age, and I was a teenager, and I wanted to go to dances and parties and things like that, I would never take my sister. And Mum used to growl. She said, "Take Heather." And I said, "No, she'll make me feel ashamed because she'll probably fall over or have a fit in the floor or something and roll her eyes." And I would never take my sister with me. Now, I talked about karma before. I had another brother. And after I shot my other brother, Trevor, I gave all my love to my other brother, which was Kevin. He played rugby, and he was a good rugby player. He was a halfback. And we used to practice together. I would teach him his rugby, it's high school. And one day, he came down to South Island to stay with us. We enjoyed some good times. And then when he went back, a few weeks after he got back, my mother rang me and said, "Kevin is in hospital." So what's wrong with him? He has leukemia. He only lasted a few weeks. And I remember going up to the Tauranga hospital and wheeling him around in a chair, in a wheelchair. He'd lost all his hair. This was the little boy that I'd put my love towards after I shot my other brother. And I thought, God, what are you doing this to me? Why are you putting me all through this terrible stuff, losing all my family? He said, "Ron, remember how you wouldn't take your sister to the dances? Remember how mean you were to your sister? Well, this is payback time, mate. If you don't love your sister, then I've taken your brother from you." And that was a great lesson that I learned in life. Whatever you give out, you're going to give back. Be it good or bad. Thank you.
This is the headstone of my young brother Kevin Desmond Bishop. Died on the 29th of November 1971, aged 19. In the grave is also his mother Joyce, who is loved wife of Arthur, and who died on the 23rd of December 1972 at age 63. I'm going to be entering the grounds of the Otamata Pa, the burial ground of the Church Mission Society from 1835 to 1881. Also the soldiers and sailors who fell in the land war in 1864 to 1865. We're looking at the headstones of two of my ancestors in the Gate Pa Cemetery in Tauranga. These headstones appear to be the oldest in the cemetery. The first one is of Anne Catherine, wife of John Alexander Wilson, who died on the 23rd of November 1838, aged 35 years. Over here we have Charlotte Lilly, who's a beloved daughter of John Alexander and Anne Lydia Wilson, who died on the 4th of April 1885, aged 26 years. Those very ancient headstones are very precious to my memories of my ancestors. We're looking at Judge Wilson, Judge John Alexander Wilson. He was the son of Reverend John Alexander Wilson, who came out from England as a missionary and spent many of his hours teaching the Maori people Christianity, and in particular trying to persuade them that cannibalism was not the right thing to do.
But Judge Wilson, his son, as you see here, was the first judge of the Maori Land Court in Tauranga. His job was to go around buying up land. He bought 1 million acres of land around the Bay of Plenty for the government. He also owned White Island, which is an island off Tauranga, and he developed superphosphate and had a factory in Tauranga manufacturing superphosphate, which they used to grow the grass in New Zealand. He's had 13 children. My grandmother was number 13, so if he hadn't had the number 13, I would not be here. But there he is, good looking chap. See you, Joe.